It was an all SEC schedule last year, and Missouri still was able to go 500. They went 5-5 with an all SEC schedule, and that I think surprised a lot of people, including me. You look at the schedule for this year, and they have a chance, I think, to do even better, at least overall. And you go 500 in the SEC again this year, that would be 4-4. Win your non-conference games, and Missouri's sitting there at 8-4 at the end of the day. That would be a really good season, I think, for Missouri. And the schedule really in the non-conference is not too tough. Let's first look at the games outside of the division, because we know, of course, Missouri is going to play everyone in the SEC East. So in the non-conference, they're going to play Central Michigan, Southeast Missouri, on the road at Boston College, and North Texas. So out of those 4 games, really only one challenging game. That'll be on the road at Boston College. BC was pretty good last year. They should be similar this year. So I think that's going to be a really great matchup. Maybe not one that many people are talking about when you're talking about the big non-conference games. That one right there, I'm telling you, that could be a big one there. And then North Texas, you never know. Central Michigan, you never know. But Southeast Missouri, an FCS team, shouldn't be any challenge at all. Out of the West, they're going to play Texas A&M and Arkansas. Now, they play Arkansas every year, so you know that one's going to happen. They always play them at the end of the season. That's kind of the new rivalry, I guess, that the SEC has put together. Cross-division rivalry, anyways. So they're going to play Arkansas. The other team out of the West is Texas A&M, so they don't get a great draw here. But I think, really, as long as you avoid Alabama, you're doing okay with your schedule, because yes, Texas A&M, LSU, those teams are probably going to be second and third. We don't know for sure which order that's going to be. Those are, again, probably the second and third best teams. But there are no easy games in the SEC. If Missouri had to play Arkansas and then play Ole Miss, I mean, that would still be pretty tough. Ole Miss is going to be pretty good. SEC West is going to be tough this year. So I think you're just glad that you don't have to play Alabama, and you're pretty happy with the Texas A&M draw there to go along with Arkansas. So they open up on September the 4th against Central Michigan. That will be a home game. And then they go on the road to face Kentucky. This is a really interesting matchup here. 2 teams that I think have a legitimate chance to finish number 2 in the SEC East. And if Florida does not drop off and Florida's number 2, I think this is probably a battle for number 3 in the SEC East. So a big game early in the year when we're just talking about where these teams could finish in that division. Going to be a good one. And then Southeast Missouri after that. Boston College on September 25th on the road. Just talked about how that is going to be a pretty tough test for Missouri. 2 teams that I think are pretty similar when you talk about where they are in the landscape of college football. Both teams are teams that I think could maybe make it into the top 25 this year. They're kind of on that borderline, and playing on the road is obviously going to make it tough. And we're going to assume, for when we talk about these schedules and everything, that the stadiums will be back at full capacity, or at least 50% or more. So I think there will be a home field advantage. Obviously, that's a long ways away, and we never know. But they then get back into SEC play with Tennessee on October 2nd, and then North Texas on October 9th. I really like the start for Missouri here. When you go from Central Michigan there to North Texas, there's not a game that they can't win. They can beat Kentucky on the road. They can beat Boston College on the road. They can beat Tennessee and will probably be favored against Tennessee. So you're talking about 6 games that they have a chance. They have a chance to win. If you win all 6 of those games, they're already bowl eligible before they really hit the toughest part of their schedule. So that'll be really important. How do they come out of those 6 games? They at least, I think, need to go 5-1 if they're going to have a really good year. Texas A&M will be next on October 16th. It's a home game. Big opportunity for Missouri. Tough opponent, but I don't know that Texas A&M is going to be quite as good as they were last year. And I think it's a winnable game for Missouri. They're going to be underdogs, but it's a winnable game. And it's going to be a big one. If they can win that game and they can start 7-0, we're going to start talking about Missouri as a team that could maybe sneak into the college football playoff. I mean, they're probably not, because you still got some tough games down the stretch, but they at least would, start. People would pay attention to them. They would move up the rankings. Vanderbilt is next on October 23rd. You have to like Missouri's chances in that game. And then their toughest game of the year is against Georgia on the road November 6th, but they get a bye week before that game. Perfect time for your bye week. If you can go on the road and upset Georgia, then we're really going to be talking about Missouri. But that obviously is going to be a really tough test. Even if they lose to Georgia, though, every other game on this schedule I think is winnable. Now, will there be games where they're underdogs? Yes, absolutely. But I think they'll have a chance. They'll at least have a chance in every game that they play, outside of maybe that Georgia game. So again, Missouri, a team that no one really is talking about, but I think this schedule sets up well for them. They get South Carolina at home. South Carolina shouldn't be too tough this year. Florida at home. And again, if Florida drops off a little bit, you get them at home. Missouri's played Florida really tough in the past since they've come into the SEC, so that could be a potential win for them. And then Arkansas on the road November 27th. That actually could be one of their tougher games, because when you look at who they play on the road in the SEC, it's Kentucky, it's Vanderbilt, and of course Georgia. That's going to be their toughest game. But it's Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas. So this schedule really sets up well. They get Texas A&M and Florida at home, two of the bigger games, maybe their second and third toughest games, both at home. And so I think this schedule does give Missouri a chance to have a special season. Now, are they going to be good enough to do that? That's another question. But I think if this team is a really good team this year, the schedule absolutely sets up in a way to where Missouri could be a surprise team in 2021.